What if your wedding night wasn't a celebration but a punishment? What if your bridal suite was frozen solid, your bed carved from ice, and your only company was the freezing wind? This is not a fairy tale. It really happened in the dead of a Russian. Winter, an empress drunk on power and vengeance, forced a noble woman stripped of her dignity and warmth into a palace made entirely of ice. She was locked inside naked all night under guard. Why? Because Empress Anna of Russia wasn't just a ruler. She was a master of cruelty. Master's entertainment in this chilling episode will uncover the truth behind one of the most bizarre and brutal moments in royal history. You'll learn who this princess was, how she ended up the target of Anna's icy rage, and most shocking of all, how she survived the night without freezing to death, peeling back the layers of opulence, power, and punishment that history often forgets. Stay with us till the end, because what you're about to hear is stranger than fiction, but entirely real. Welcome to History Screen, where the past is never boring. Don't forget to subscribe for more untold tales from the darker corners of history to understand how a princess ended up locked naked in an ice palace. We meet the woman who made it happen, Empress Anna Ivanovna. She ruled Russia from 1730 to 1740, and though her name may not be as famous as Peter the Great or Catherine, her reign was unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Anna wasn't just powerful, she was unpredictable. Raised in a court full of scheming nobles and endless intrigue, she quickly learned that fear was the best way to stay in control. She didn't just rule her court, she played with it like a cat plays with a mouse. Cruelty became her entertainment. She loved elaborate pranks, but these weren't innocent jokes. She once forced nobles to bark like dogs at royal banquets. She demoted high-ranking aristocrats for petty reasons, then made them dress in clownish clothes and serve her wine. And when she wanted to send a message, she made sure it echoed in the winter of 1739-1740. Anna ordered the construction of something the world had never seen before, a palace made entirely of ice. It was built in St. Petersburg to celebrate a Russian victory over the Ottoman Empire. A symbol of her rule, cold, magnificent, and cruel, the palace was stunning: ice walls, ice furniture, even ice cannons. But beneath all the glittering beauty was something darker. This wasn't just a monument, it was a stage for revenge, because Anna had someone in mind for her next twisted performance, and she was about to make the whole empire watch. Prince Mikhail Alexeyevich Golitsyn was no ordinary man. Born into one of the oldest and most powerful noble families in Russia, he was a decorated military leader, a statesman, and a man of immense prestige. But all of that would vanish with one decision: the choice to marry for love. His bride was an Italian woman, a Catholic. That alone was enough to spark fury in the Russian court, where orthodoxy ruled and foreign influence was viewed with suspicion. But it wasn't just court gossip that came after him. It was the empress herself. Anna Ivanovna saw Golitsyn's marriage as an act of betrayal, not just to tradition, but to her authority. And she didn't just punish him, she humiliated him. Stripped of his titles, Prince Golitsyn was reduced to a jester in Anna's court. Literally, he was forced to wear a fool's clothing. His hair was cut in absurd styles, he danced when ordered, bowed when mocked, and became a living joke among the nobility. A prince who once commanded armies now served as entertainment at banquets. But Anna wasn't finished. Years later, she ordered him to remarry, but this time, not to a woman of his choosing. She selected a Kalmyk servant, girl, poor, uneducated, and completely unknown. The wedding was not a celebration, but a performance, a cruel piece of theater orchestrated by the empress. It was all part of a grander humiliation. Anna wanted to remind the court and Golitsyn himself that no title, no bloodline, no honor was safe under her rule. The marriage was the final blow, but it was only the beginning of what she truly had planned, because the ceremony would not take place in a church or palace, but inside a frozen nightmare built from solid blocks of ice. Year was 1740. Winter in Russia wasn't just cold, it was brutal. But to Empress Anna, it was the perfect time for a spectacle. Not just any spectacle, but one carved completely from ice. After Russia's victory over the Ottoman Empire, Anna wanted to celebrate in a way no one would forget. So she ordered her architects Pyro Ropkin and Georg Kraft to build something incredible on the frozen Neva River. In St. Petersburg, what they created was no ordinary palace. It was a shimmering nightmare. The ice palace stood nearly 20 meters tall and stretched, 50 meters wide. Everything was made of solid ice. The walls glistened like glass. Ceilings sparkled in the moonlight. Even the hinges on the doors were frozen in the shape inside. It looked like something from a dream or a punishment. The palace had life-size ice trees with frozen birds on their branches. There were sculptures of mythical beasts and grand fountains. Frozen mid-splash chandeliers hung from above, made entirely from icicles. Furniture was the strangest part. There was an ice bed complete with a frozen headboard and stiff hard pillows. The dining table was ice too, laid with ice plates, forks, and cups. Even the fireplace was built from ice. The illusion was clever. It had carved logs, an icy mantle, and colored paper flames. Pretending to burn, the palace wasn't just for looking. It was built to host a real twisted event, a wedding like no other. Anna made sure the ice palace was equipped with everything needed to mock comfort. There were frozen benches, a ballroom, and a chamber for the bride and groom. The only thing it lacked was warmth. The point guards were stationed at the doors to make sure no one escaped. Soldiers dressed in winter furs stood by while the walls shimmered and cracked in the bitter wind. The structure groaned in the night. It was beautiful. It was cruel. This ice palace wasn't a symbol of celebration. It was a stage for humiliation. Every detail, every frozen spoon and icy torch was part of Anna's cold revenge, and at the center of it all was one couple handpicked by the empress, waiting to be locked inside. The frostbitten cruelty of Empress Anna didn't stop at simply humiliating the prince. She wanted a show, a spectacle so absurd and twisted it would leave the entire Russian court speechless. It was January 1741, of the coldest winters on record. But that didn't stop Anna from planning a wedding unlike any other. She had stripped Prince Mikhail Golitsyn of his title and pride. Now she forced him to marry again. Not for love, not for politics, but for her amusement. His bride, a Kalmyk servant, someone far below his rank, selected specifically to shame him further. Anna planned every detail of the wedding like a theatrical performance. There was no grand cathedral or royal reception. Instead, she created a circus, literally a bizarre parade snaked through the icy streets of St. Petersburg. At the front, an elephant lumbered forward. Behind it came camels, boars, clowns, and fur dwarves dressed in jester costumes. Foreign animals and Russian peasants alike were forced into the acting. The center of it all, the newlyweds sat trapped in a metal cage mounted on the elephant's back. They were forced to wear ridiculous costumes, part peasant, part royal. They were not allowed to speak, not allowed to smile, only to sit and be displayed like trophies of the empress's power. The crowd laughed and cheered, but it wasn't joy. It was fear in disguise. Everyone knew that defiance could turn them into the next performance. Anna watched it all from her palace, windows, entertained by the chaos she had unleashed. The wedding was not about two people joining their lives. It was about dominance, her dominance over those who dared defy her. After the parade, the couple was marched to their wedding banquet. But this too was just part of the act. The food was frozen, the wine was fake, and every guest was dressed in mismatched rags and furs, handpicked by Anna to mock different ethnicities and classes of the Russian Empire. The bride and groom were the centerpiece, frozen, humiliated, and powerless. But Anna wasn't done. She had saved the most vicious part of her performance for last. She ordered them to spend their wedding night in a palace made entirely of ice. As the wedding celebration ended, the final act of Empress Anna's twisted play began. Couple Prince Mikhail Golitsyn and his new bride were led to their wedding chamber. But this was no ordinary bedroom. It was carved entirely from ice. The walls, the chairs, even the bed solid frozen. Blocks glittering under torchlight like a cruel joke. Guard stood outside the door. The orders were clear. The couple would spend the entire night inside alone, completely naked. No blankets, no fire, no food, just the howling cold of a Russian winter. The palace, though beautiful, was a prison made of frost. Inside, every breath turned to mist. The floor was icy stone. The bed was like lying on a slab in a morgue. And above all, there was no escape. Empress Anna reportedly gave a mocking instruction: let them make love or freeze to death. It wasn't just punishment, it was humiliation. A public display of total control. Anna wanted everyone to know that defiance or even displeasure would not go unanswered. But the bride wasn't just beautiful, she was clever. Faced with the brutal cold and the threat of death, she found a way to survive somewhere. During that night, she managed to get the attention of a guard. Perhaps he pitied her. Perhaps he wanted something in return. Either way, a deal was struck. The bride offered her pearl necklace, something rare and valuable even in royal circles. In return, the guard gave her a sheepskin coat. That coat may have saved her life. Wrapped in it, she endured the night, shivering, frightened, but alive. The next morning, the couple emerged. Pale, frostbitten, but breathing, the empress had made her point. Her power was absolute, and everyone at court had seen it. What started as a mock wedding had turned into one of the most bizarre punishments in imperial history. The Ice Palace had done more than shock the court. It left a chilling scar in history, one that would be whispered about for centuries. By the winter of 1740, Empress Anna's rule was coming to an end. Her health had been in decline, and on October 28th of that year, she died, just months after she forced that humiliating wedding and locked a noble woman inside an ice palace. Anna herself was gone, leaving behind a legacy as one of Russia's most unpredictable rulers. The ice palace too didn't last. Built on the frozen banks of the Neva River, it stood for just one season. By the spring thaw of 1741, the palace melted back into the river. But the memory of what had happened there did not melt so easily. For years, the story of the frozen wedding remained a whispered legend. That changed in 1835, when Russian novelist Vladimir Losoknikov published The Ice House, a dramatic retelling of the event. His novel took inspiration from the real spectacle, but added layers of political commentary and theatrical flair. It brought the tale back into public memory and made sure the empress's cruelty would not be forgotten. But the legacy didn't end with a book. In 2006, nearly 3 centuries later, Russian artists and engineers built a full-scale replica of Anna's Ice Palace in St. Petersburg. They used more than 1,000 blocks of ice carefully sculpted to mirror the original structure. The replica included icy chandeliers, walls, and even the infamous ice bed. Newspapers and tourists flocked to it. Modern visitors could walk through the frozen halls once again, not as prisoners, but as guests of history. It was chilling in more ways than one, though the original Ice Palace melted long ago. Its story has continued to echo through time in novels, art, and now in video. The past may freeze and melt, but it never disappears. What happened inside that Ice Palace wasn't just a strange moment in history. It was a display of absolute power. Cold, calculated, and merciless. Empress Anna didn't simply punish a man for disobeying her. She turned him into a living joke. She stripped him of his name, his dignity, and even his warmth. Then she made a woman, the new bride, endure a night of misery inside a palace made from ice just to entertain the court. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was cruelty hidden under diamonds and royal robes. A world where one person had unlimited power and unimaginable wealth. Reality twisted. Life became a theater. People became playthings, and suffering became part of the show. That's the real lesson here. When no one can question a ruler, when money and might come without limits, the results are often strange, shocking, and deeply cruel. History has many such stories. This is just one of them, but it's one worth remembering because behind the grand palaces and golden crowns were real people. Some laughed, some obeyed, others froze in silence, and now, centuries later, we're still talking about it, still wondering what it must have felt like to sleep naked under a roof of ice just because someone in power said so. Imagine living through that. For more dark tales and forgotten corners of the past, make sure to subscribe to History Screen, where history isn't just about dates, it's about the people who lived through the madness.